Thanks, Riv. Want to welcome back Joshua Jat-Leesman to the analyst desk. And Jat, at the beginning of the show, we talked about LMQ having some inner turmoil and the fact that this might affect their play. They might slip up a little bit. That didn't seem to happen. So is that all a moot point now? Are they here to just snag that top spot and hold on to it?
One thing we got to remember about LMQ is there's been a lot of questions about them this entire split. Whether it was them, are they going to be a middle-of-the-pack team? Okay, they started 4-0. Oh, but they started early just because no one knew what they're going to do. Wait a minute, they're still first. Oh, they have management shakeups. No, they still know how to play League of Legends. Every time there's a question about LMQ, they seem to step up and answer. And I think the biggest thing about this is we're questioning how distracted they would be by the distractions or how insulated would they be from all the chaos, and it looks like they've been able to focus on their game.
Yeah, they've just been focusing on their game completely. They came to North America to play some League of Legends, and they're doing exactly that. They just beat TSM with Lustboy, which was on an upswell going 2-0, and they looked really good.
Yeah.
And TSM actually looked pretty bad that game in terms of ward control and just all over the map.
All right, so let's touch on that a little bit. TSM, conversely, did not look so good after having a 2-0 week last week. So with the addition of Lustboy, where do we point our finger to find the problem there?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So much went wrong for TSM this game. It's hard to point to pick and ban because we looked at the bans that they actually did do. It was what, Kassadin, Braum, and Gragas. Those are all bans you're like, all right, I guess those are foreseeable bans. But Kobe mentioned it during the game as well. LMQ got all of their favorite champions. And TSM was put in a situation with the Zilean and the Rengar that they had to win early. So LMQ just played the most casual, comfortable game possible.
Yeah, and it wasn't really a multi-threat attack that they had, and their synergy, it just seemed like they tried too much innovation at once. They brought out the Alistar, they brought out the Zilean mid, then Dyrus on Aurelia top isn't something we always see. He did have a really good Aurelia game previously, but that was off of the split push. And then you look at LMQ, it's back to the basics for them. They tried the poke comp last week, didn't work. They're like, right, Yasuo comp. We know how to do this. They know how to do this well. Handed to Nunu for objective control, and then Tristana on Vasily. You cannot give him that champion.
Let's talk about the picks for another second, though, there.
Sure.
We saw the Rengar come out. 3 wins, 10 losses in the North American LCS this split. Now, we're seeing a ton of success with it over in Korea. It's picked, banned every single game, usually first rotation, things like that, and then it's generally performing pretty well. So why are we struggling picking it up so much?
I think the big thing there is vision. TSM lacked vision control, and people are favoring Sightstone junglers now that the rest of the team has to, when you pick up a Rengar, contribute early and then snowball the Rengar off of a lack of vision on the other team. Rengar's ultimate gives you vision. You go in and you capitalize on this and you bypass wards, and then you build a little offensive at the start, then you transition into tanky late game. You have to set yourself up for success and not let up the pressure because Rengar does fall off late game.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit to do with sample size as well, but one thing we do have to keep in mind is how Rengar's not just a champion that you pick in the jungle, it's a strategy that you have to play the game with. He doesn't have much presence pre-6. When you compare him to the other junglers, which are all about the pre-6 presence in the game, it's a total change of mindset. Not to mention how important your ganks have to be, and also you're put on the clock. It falls off late game. You can't be 77 minutes into the game and still have a Rengar being super effective on your team. NA teams have been playing very long games this split, which is not a very healthy environment for an early game snowballing strategy. I think it's just a bunch of combinations as well as a small sample size, but it's still a strategy, not just a champion.
All right, well, let's get into the game then. 23 minutes in, we'll look at a replay so we can kind of demonstrate how difficult it was for TSM to engage in a team fight even that early into the game. So, Zyrene, if you could, walk me through this dragon fight.
Yeah, this is going to be the pentakill here from Vasily. It's 23 minutes in the game, one of the earliest ones we've ever seen. Xiao goes straight after the dragon. He'll win wall to just block off some damage from the side, and then No Name does zone control. We'll start rolling the clip right now. Watch where No Name goes. He completely disregards the dragon, flashes into the team to zone them off, and everybody starts focusing him. He's so tanky that by the time that the dragon goes down, everybody's just focused on him.
And they used all of their crowd control right there on the Nunu, which left the rest of LMQ free to just rain chaos on the rest of TSM.
Yeah, and then Vasily just camps the body, comes up, and he's not the main target here. Everybody's focusing some other threat. They think it's a Yasuo comp. You zone the Yasuo off to the side. It's really a Vasily-focused comp at the same time. It's multi-threat, and that's just so cute right there. He goes, flashes over the wall, rocket jumps back. Vasily's always going to go in if he has an option.
Now, one of my favorite parts of that clip is the fact that Xiao is in the dragon pit, just tanking the dragon that whole time. Just like, nah, I got this, guys. Don't worry about me. But in a more serious aspect, we noticed that the Zilean ult never really was effective, right? They used it multiple times in multiple fights. Freak kind of touched on it, like you have to use it in the earlier stages where the teams are more even, they're more equal. So what happens then when you've got this champion like Zilean and you're starting to fall behind? How do you come back there?
Ooh, it's really rough because Zilean ulti, of course, is a utility-based spell. You have to have somebody who you set up for success, and they had the makings of that. If you get the Rengar to camp bottom and then you get that ahead, then you just keep using the Zilean ultimate on your AD carry, and then you're fine for the rest of the game, but they didn't do that.
One thing that was really critical is that team fight we just saw with Vasili's pentakill. That was where TSM needed to get back in the game, right? It was a fight where they still managed to take down, what was it, 4 people on LMQ, because he did finish off Xiao Xiao with that last Zilean bomb. If they would have played that fight a little better, that's exactly what they had to do. They have to force, you pick Zilean, you're running against the clock, unfortunately, because you have to win early on in the game. It's not intentional.
Yeah.
That's really the way you put it in. That's why you actually see Soul Stealer as a legitimate item on Zilean sometimes, because he has to snowball the game in order to be effective.
All right. Now, looking at kind of the more macro scale, LMQ is now 2 games up on the lead. Both Cloud9 and LMQ have already lost their first game, and they were the 2 that were really looking at contending for that spot. So how do you guys view kind of that top 4 slots kind of playing out?
Right, because it's just to clarify, LMQ 2-game lead on TSM and Cloud9 with 3 to go. It's seemingly like LMQ is completely out of the woods as far as danger was concerned. We had all those questions about whether or not they'd be effective in their gameplay, and at least for now, they are looking just as good as they've ever been, like nothing happened to them in that match.
Yeah, it's really hard for people to catch them right now, especially since TSM and Cloud9 play each other. So one of those matches has to go the other direction. So LMQ, even if they lose the remainder of their games, they're still looking at a tiebreaker situation, possibly, but I think Cloud9 actually owns that over them.
Yeah, but they would hold a tiebreaker over TSM because they beat them all 4 times.
There's only one way that LMQ wouldn't make top 2.
That's if they lose all of their games and they end up being tied with Cloud9.
Now, they play EG, Curse, and Dig in their next 3 games, and surprisingly, we talk about them being out of the woods, but they have losing records against Curse and Dig. So is there an opportunity for some upset there, and what do they need to do specifically against those teams to kind of make sure that they get out?
I think they continue to do what they're doing. They can rely on their power picks for the most part. We saw, especially when LMQ is blue side right now, the bans that they drew just because they're so proficient at the main ban champions, as well as having so many things that they just excel on, specifically like a new jungle. Blue side is just play comfortably for them. And other than that, just don't underestimate their opponents, which they've never done.
Yeah, exactly. They come in with complete just respect for their opponents, and they're like, we're going to prepare for you specifically. We're going to ban what you think you're really good at. And then when people play them, it's like, all right, we have to ban out a specific strategy that we don't want to play against because there's just so many things in LMQ's bag of tricks.
Yeah, they said weeks ago that they have a very specific plan for every single team that they play. So the kind of the inverse of that is, what do teams have to specifically do against LMQ then to beat them? Because we, as you stated, Jat, we saw 3 bans that were not a surprise, but Xiao Xiao still ended up on Yasuo, right? They still had Nunu, they had Vasili on Triss. Like, you can't ban them out. So what is your approach then?
Yeah, I think you ban the OPs against them, or sorry, you do not ban the OPs against them. You ban the things that are pretty good and that they main. So you ban the Yasuo, you ban the Lulu, and you ban the Tristana. If you're red side, and you just kind of roll the dice and play against Kassadin.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then maybe pick up a couple OPs for yourself.
Exactly.
There. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for the insight. It was quite a lot of information there to absorb. But coming up after a quick break, we'll check out what you've been saying over on Twitter, not us. Then we'll unleash Complexity and Cloud9 to battle it out in our 4th match of the day. Grab a snack and get right back here.